Betsy, you graduated in 1965, got your master's in 1980, and you've been here, I guess, all that time. Um, can you talk a little bit about your Baylor journey and how the university has changed over the years?
Um, well, I can talk about coming to Baylor was um, the only option. I was from Waco, and my my whole life, I suppose, I dreamed of coming here. My family had gone to Baylor, so I lived at home and came to Baylor and spent some very good time here. But I also didn't stay too long. I took a year and a half at Tech. Oh, I'm supposed to. And then we had family issues and illness and death, and so I came back and I finished up at Baylor my junior and senior year. So I was in, and then I was out. Came back, had a wonderful chance to work for Ann Marshall, who was the dean of women at one point, and then Virginia Crump was dean of women as well, and so it was a very big learning experience about some of the things women can do. Both of those women were strong, impressive, academic.
Tell me a little bit more about each of them.
Well, Virginia was a devoted administrator, and she expected a lot of her staff, so we all did everything we could to impress her. She also was dealing with a lot of illness at that time, and so we also knew that she had a great deal of grit and devotion to excellence in the midst of very challenging arthritis issues. And Marshall was a little bit intimidating in that she was such a fine example of a woman who was highly educated, trained, and came in here to move the Dean of Women's work forward. She cared about students. She also came across as no nonsense, and so you esteemed her in a very different way, really, from the way you would think of Virginia, perhaps because Virginia was a Baylor grad and Marshall was not. But both of them were very good examples of women administrators, and I've called on that.
How so?
Well, in my generation, there were not that many women who were already in positions of leadership and power. So naturally, I've wanted to emulate some of what I saw in their devotion to their work and the seriousness of what it is to be university people. And so that was a great beginning place. You know, faculty here, Elizabeth Smith Githens was the woman who opened up the world of poetry to me, and so I did not have Ann Miller when I was an undergrad. That's my loss, because I did have her then as a grad student. And of course, Ann Miller was sort of, take Virginia Crump and Ann Marshall and then lift that, square it or triple it. And the intensity of Ann was so amazing. I met her when I was doing graduate study here, and she was awesome.
Now, a family dinner in your household would include Ann Vardaman Miller, her husband Robert Miller, who was the head of the political science department,
Right.
and your husband, the esteemed James Vardaman.
That's correct.
Tell me a little bit about that dynamic and about those three people.
Well, Bob was the person who kind of held us all together in terms of family issues. He was certainly intellectually strong, and he's revered by the political science people who studied under him, and as an administrator, he did a lot of great things here. He was also in D.C. for several years with Senator Pogue.
Mhm.
And so he had a wide background. They had both taught in Japan. But when we would sit down to dinner as a family, oftentimes Dr. James Vardaman and his esteemed sister would spark each other on issues that had to do with literature or history. And if you're not careful before you'd even served the entree, there were very, very high levels of intellectual disagreement as well as agreement going on in the room. So it was quite something to see. And as a family, to watch them, Bob being the sort of person who could bring some kind of peace and move us forward through, also noticing that we had beautiful food. Anne was a great cook. So at her house, it was always gorgeous food. If it was at our house, it was good food, but maybe not quite at the level of artistic presentation that she had. So you never forgot a meal with them. It was always wonderfully easy for me to be around Bob, but both of us and others in the family being astonished at what James and Anne were saying to one another and the points they were expanding upon. It's quite rich.
So it's almost like being in a classroom?
Well, except they really weren't expecting much of Bob or me. They were really going after each other. So it was a classroom of two dynamic professors at the front of the room, and then their family there watching, but not so much that we were expected to contribute. Thanks be to God, I really could not have done so. And all of Jim's brothers, as well as Anne, were just hugely well educated. They all had their PhDs, and in one case, or maybe two cases, they had double doctorates. So they were all extremely intellectually powerful and loved, I think, being together and taking issue with every minute and large issue through time, scripture, art, history. They could go anywhere.
Tell me a little bit about your time. Again, how has this university changed over the 50 years that you've been here?
Gosh.
50 plus years.
Yeah, wow. Well, of course, it's a wonderfully finely tuned engine of academic excellence. It was always good. There were always some professors that were just completely amazing. But as the years have gone by and Baylor has grown into this powerhouse of academics, you have added the Robbins College, you've added the Honors College, and as you watch these things happen, you say, well, will Baylor lose that deep, abiding, ineffable kind of sense of love and care? I don't think it's lost that. And instead, we've added all these extraordinary science. Look at our science building. It's completely incredible. And so you've got all kinds of things that have grown and developed. But the good news has been somehow, as they've interviewed and chosen faculty, there's this abiding love, in my view, most important is the undergraduate. They've continued to care about the undergraduate and mentor undergraduates and help them not only figure out what to major in or perhaps where to go afterwards, but the more basic conversations of what is worth wanting, so that you can start with a student wherever he or she is. And I just see an awful lot of that. I read a lot of recommendation letters. That's part of my job. And I can't say enough about the kind of love and devotion these faculty have to making sure the students are understood and they are described in ways that make the student clear to anybody who's going to be reading those letters, but also shows that these faculty are very, very educated, and they also have taken time to know the story of the student that they're writing about. I see a lot has changed. It's gorgeous. The campus is beautiful everywhere. But deep down, it seems to me that same heart is beating in the university. So,
And you think that's transcending the recent problems?
well, it has for me. I can't speak for everyone. I know we're all heartbroken and concerned about the image of Baylor being redefined by very, very deep and dark troubles that I'm sorry to say in some ways I perhaps should have known more about what was going on, but in the academic units, our job has been to do the work of the academic units, and I haven't had occasion to know any of the situations except as I've read them in the newspaper.
What does Baylor mean to you?
Well, I think that one can hope for an environment in which you would be able to thrive and grow throughout your life, but it's not easy to find. So the fact that I had a chance to be at Baylor and do my work as a young person, just falling in love with great literature and great poetry, but then to fall in love with all of the people that come through the university at the different levels. I mean, I've been awed by some of our highest administration personnel, but I've also just loved the honor of getting to work with young people. So here I am, at the top end of my career, and I just feel I have been the luckiest person in the world to get to be here, to meet all of them. We had Czeslaw Milosz here in 2000, and in 4 years ago, Seamus Heaney, another Nobel laureate of literature, was here, and we've had chances. Jim and I have had chances to become friends with people like Michael Maine and his wife Allison. He was the dean of Westminster Abbey during 10 years of time that we were working in London every summer, and we became personally friends with them. So I don't know, I just feel like half the doors of the world have been opened to me, and I've been able to walk through them with Baylor's blessing. And sometimes I've been able to take, some students and faculty and friends with me, alumni. So I don't know, I guess I just think the world, Baylor and Dr. James Vardaman gave me the world. And so I have been able to drink it in, and I hope give it out.
And we're done.